A very good morning to you and welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Mote. Thank you for making time to be part of the show. And of course, today it's all about where we're moving as far as inclusivity, hustlernomics. How do we make, heads or tails of what's going on? That's a conversation we'll be having right here virtually. And of course, we love it when you're part of the conversation. Once again, you can get me at I am Jeff Mote on Twitter or at K24 TV as well. Now, it's a new year, but the baggage from 2020 still weighs heavy on the shoulders of the country. An issue that has made it into the new year is the matter of inclusivity. What is it and how is it practically achieved? More positions for more communities in the executive? And if so, is this feasible? And as a debate between dynasties and hustlers takes shape, the country is grappling with economic and healthcare issues that have Kenyans really hard pressed. So, with that backdrop, today we talk inclusivity and hustlernomics on K24 this morning. But first, the newspaper headlines. Start off with the front page of the People Daily, and that's what we're talking about right now. The heading and right there says it all. Broke Treasury gets 32 billion shilling debt suspension. 6 months postponement of repayment gives the attorney much-needed funds to address pressing issues such as COVID-19 and the monetary challenges brought about by the reopening of schools. As you can see there at a glance, what our debt looking like right now in terms of the relief that we've gotten so far. 32.9 billion shillings. This is Kenya's foreign debt owed to 10 bilateral partners under the Paris Club, and that was to fall for payment this month, but has been pushed to June 30th, 2021. Also, Kenya has also applied for debt service suspension under the G20 DSSI framework for amounts estimated due from January 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2021 from non-Paris Club bilateral creditors. 40.6 billion shillings, what they're applying for, and also Treasury seeking Parliament to approve the lifting of the debt ceiling from the current 9 trillion to 12 trillion Kenya shillings. That's at a glance the figures that we're looking at this morning as far as your People Daily is concerned. Also on the other side of your People Daily, same page, extreme left, retired CJ handed over instruments of power to his deputy with a warning that if the judges don't protect the constitution, anarchy will prevail. As you can see right there, his wig was taken, he was derobed, his number plate taken off his vehicle, and he left the precincts of the Supreme Court, of course, not the CJ anymore. And you can find this particular story in your copy of your People Daily right there. Let's go to the top of the PD very quickly. There you have it. Raila, rotate presidency for national unity. Opposition leader says world over, multi-ethnic communities have found a way of including everyone in leadership to ensure equitable distribution of the national cake. That's a conversation we're having here in studio as well. How do we do that, and how do we make sure everybody gets a piece of this national cake? That story is on page 6 of your PD. Also, the new face of Deputy President confounds opponents, of course. Him being the man to watch, even as we move forward on this particular issue. They dig deeper as to the new political posture that Dr. William Ruto is taking in the year 2021. You can find this story in your copy of your People Daily. And because I know it's been raining in Nairobi, some showers right across the country, you don't need to leave your house. So if you've gotten to your office to get yourself your PD, you can get it straight to your phone. And the number that you dial is *550*4#. It's only 10 shillings and you get it straight to your phone, courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. As we do that, let's look at what the rest of the papers have this morning. High stakes in hunt for the next CJ. David Maraga's successor will bear the burden of history as she or he will have to mend strained ties with the executive, restart stalled judicial reforms, and preside over a political transition. The Standard going into detail on this particular story on page 2, 3, 4, and 16. And even as I talk about that, some of the potential candidates are right there. We have the Acting Chief Justice, Philomena Mwilu, Supreme Court Judge Njoki Ndongo, Court of Appeal President Ouko, Supreme Court Judge Smokin Wanjala, just some of the people who are there. Also pretty interesting candidate right there as far as the Standard is concerned. Lawyer Abdikadir Mohammed could be in the race for that particular position as the Standard postulates, and you can get that story in your copy of your Standard this morning. Even as you look at that, stark reality. Kenya has become a burial ground for new businesses due to high levels of corruption, excessive bureaucracy, and a largely informal economy leading to low jobs growth. This is some of the details in the particular story you can get in your Financial Standard pull-out today, of course, as I dig deeper into matters economy in the paper. Front page of the Daily Nation, why Uhuru's backyard is restless. Supporters of the handshake now fear that their political careers could be on the chopping block because of growing support for Deputy President William Ruto in the region. This on page 5, and also this headline being informed by the letter that Senator Kamata wrote, just speaking to the issue of the popularity of the BBI in the Mount Kenya region, and the fact that at this particular point in time he advised the president to relook in terms of strategy and also the team forwarding this particular initiative. They have done that since. They've put together a Mount Kenya team that will actually go and sensitize this particular project in the area, bring some awareness to the issues within this particular document. So it seems like so far those pleas did land on ears that listened, and you can find that story in your copy of your Daily Nation today. Let's look at the front page of the Star now. Uhuru hands Raila and Musalia 2022 chance over Ruto. Kenyatta is reportedly working to ensure NASA trio remains together. Amazing how things do change in politics, as you can see that right there. This story can be found on page 4 and 5 of your Star this morning. You can get all the details right there. And also in your Star, don't let politicians ruin Kenya. Last words from the CJ as he urged judges to, verily defend the Constitution and, of course, their role as far as keeping the country together is concerned. And you can get that story in your copy of your Star right there. Also in your Star, autopsy report reveals stab wounds were similar in length, and the government pathologist speaking to the fact that it was either one person who committed the Karura Kiambu murders or multiple people with similar knives as far as that's concerned, similar weapons, and that's what is on page 2 of your Star. You can get the details right there. Also the Star calling this the recipe for trouble. Controller of budget warns of debt crisis if borrowing trend doesn't change. This, of course, a key issue of concern even as we get into this year, and an economy really hard pressed because of COVID-19 and the effects of that. And you can find the story on page 8 of your Star this morning. Finally, we look at the front page of your Business Daily. Pension payouts hit a record 20.4 billion Kenya shillings. Burden on taxpayer has risen despite raising the retirement age to 60. These are some of the issues that are coming to play, even as we look at how the government will actually juggle all of its financial priorities right there. And this headline makes front and center as far as your Business Daily is concerned. You can get more details of that particular story right there. Let's scroll down. Kenya eyes China action after Paris Club debt relief. We do know as far as China's loan books are concerned, Kenya having quite a substantial amount of debt in there, and just trying to see if they can get some relief as far as payment of Chinese debt is concerned. You can find that story as well in your copy of your Business Daily in there. So as you can see, those are the headlines that you're waking up to this morning. But right here on the show, we speak to the issue, inclusivity versus hustlenomics. That's a discussion going on right here. But what really does it mean for the ordinary Kenyan? It's a discussion we have right here on the show. Welcome to K24 this morning. And even as we get into this particular discussion, pretty interesting times, because today we have two of my panelists joining the conversation via video link. Mark Bichachi, communications strategist. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Uncle Jeff.
Karibu sana, Daddy Mark. Welcome to the show. Also joined by Joy Mdivo, the Executive Director for the East Africa Center for Law and Justice. Good morning, Joy.
Morning, Uncle Jeff.
Why, thank you. And thank you for making time to be on the show this morning. Now, even as we try and unpack this issue of inclusivity that has been spoken about for a while, I just want to understand from your perspective, because you've cobbled these documents together, you've read it, you've interrogated the document. Joy, I'll start with you. When the country speaks of inclusivity, what really is it seeking? Are we talking about more community positions at the executive? If we achieve that, then we are an inclusive nation?
Thank you for having me this morning. I think if we look at this in terms of what the Mwananchi understands as inclusivity, is simply being able to feel the effects of whatever prosperity the rest of the country is talking about. So if I'm talking to somebody on the streets, for example, as far as they're concerned, they feel included if development, quote unquote, gets to them. So people who, for example, were living in a place where they had not seen tarmac for years, then in the last few years, now they have a tarmac road, are feeling included in the rest of Kenya because some prosperity is trickling down to them. If you set up a business and you're able to make it successfully, then you feel that you're included in the conversation. But politically, there is an angle that has always been looked at in terms of tribal politics, where unless somebody is of your ethnic community or is from your tribal community, sometimes Kenyans do not feel as if they're quote unquote included if there is no balance. So I'm sure you've seen all these articles in newspapers and all these things that people put out where they have a list of people from certain communities saying, you know, look at all these people who are in charge of all these parastatals or ministries or things like that. At that point, the conversation is not in terms of are they competent, are they delivering, are they the best fit for the job. That time the conversation is purely look at their last name, you know where they come from. So if you look at inclusivity in Kenya, in the Kenyan context, there is the level where we are all agreed that it is a level of economic emancipation, as it were. But in terms of politics, there is where we want to, quote unquote, what we put in our constitution saying the face of Kenya. And so if you don't see the face of Kenya, then you claim there is no inclusivity. As a human rights person, I'll tell you inclusivity is when you have diversity, persons living with disabilities, minorities, women, and all these other marginalized groups. Now, that is what would be described as inclusivity. So that word, in my opinion, is so complex. So it depends on the context within which you want to apply it. That's what I'd say.
Okay, Mark, I'll come to you on this one. On the front page of the People Daily, former PM Raila Odinga is speaking about rotating presidency for national unity. The opposition leader says world over, multi-ethnic communities have found a way of including everyone in leadership to ensure equitable distribution of the national cake. Do we need to do that, Mark? Because it seems like what he's speaking to is the fact that we'll still have a very high premium on the presidency, and the only way we get this distributed cake nationally and equitably is if every community can get to the top. Is that how we solve this? Rotate it among the various communities within the country?
Let us look at practical examples from across the world, and I'll start next door in Tanzania. In Tanzania, they have one big dichotomy. That dichotomy is between the Islamic nation and the Christian nation. And it's one of those rare countries where it's almost 50-50. Now, Tanzania is one of the countries where there is very little radicalization among the Islamic community. There is a lot of cohesion between the Christians and the Muslims. And how does that happen? Well, if you look at it carefully, the immediate former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, was a Muslim. John Pombe Magufuli is a Christian. And if as far back as you want to go, ever since Mwalimu Julius Nyerere left, if you look at Mkapa and Mwinyi, and then you look at Kikwete and Pombe, you notice that as they change presidents, they consciously give the next chance to a Muslim, then the next to a Christian. So we do have a rotational system just here in Tanzania, but they don't just stop there. They also have the fact that the presidency revolves among the tribes. There is no one tribe that has ruled for more than the term of a particular president. On top of that, Tanzania has a prime minister and two deputies, and this prime minister and two deputies and the vice president never come from the same community. So we have a practical example, and Tanzania is a premier example of the rotational and distribution of positions having worked. Tanzania may be a poorer country than us, but it is by far more cohesive, it is by far more peaceful, and it has had more peaceful transitions of power even during such hard times as Pombe Magufuli has visited upon them than any other African country by my reckoning. If we go further afield, because people usually say, why are you comparing us with people who were worse than? Let us look at the United States of America. The United States of America, in choosing Barack Obama, a minority black, brought a sense of that anyone can make it. Look at Biden from Delaware, Trump from Florida. So even among the states in the United States, you will hear them mention where the president is from, and then make people understand that this presidency is not the preserve of the big states. So for example, California, New York, and such states do not have the sole prerogative of having whoever it is that leads the nation. I will take you again to the nation of Germany, which does not have term limits and has different states, Saxony, Bavaria, and the rest. And what do? They have the chance of fielding candidates from wherever. In fact, one of the biggest reasons why Angela Merkel's story is remarkable is she was the first chancellor to come from what was former Soviet West Germany, and these are the issues that we need to East Germany, and these are the issues that we need to highlight from across the world. So is cohesion achieved by allowing the different nation states to have a stab at the presidency, have a stab at the deputy presidency, have a stab at the prime ministership? Yes, because as Joy adequately put it, yes, it is about resources, but it's also about feeling that where I come from is represented within the leadership of a country. This is basic human psychology. And if you look at even how the Germans, for example, appoint ministers, they try to bring about regional balance. So these are things that are common across the world. It's just that Kenyans forget within 4 years, and then when the elections come, we will complain and say, where is inclusivity?
But Mark, what I'm wondering is, even as you speak on how to bring about this inclusivity, wouldn't it be easier just to amend, for example, the Political Parties Act, so that you make sure that every party knows that if this time their leading candidate for the presidential race was from Mark's community, next time they'll have to get someone from Jeff's community, and the time after that, Joy's community. So it's handled at the political party level, and you don't have to have this national debate as to how it will happen. It's handled there, and we move forward from that particular point. Why don't we go down that road?
You know, Jeff, I find your statement quite refreshing, because that is part of what the Political Parties Act within the BBI has done. So number one, you've got the part where it talks about the inclusion of women in the party's role. It talks about the inclusion of youth. It talks about the diversification of the different tribes. So yes, that is within the BBI, and that is the simpler solution. That is what should happen.
Okay, and even as we look at that, I just wanted to bring into perspective a presser that former PM Raila Odinga had speaking to these particular issues of inclusivity. He's weighed in on this as well, on how this possibly could be achieved rather. And before I come to you, Joy, let's just take a listen to what he had to say yesterday.
Must embrace inclusivity. But understand that each and every Kenyan pays taxes. Taxes are collected in all regions of this country without discrimination. Therefore, don't discriminate when it comes to making appointments to position this country.
And there we have it again, just speaking on how this inclusivity can be achieved. Joy, when we talk about it honestly, if we had a country where devolution is actually working, the money is getting to the grassroots, people are getting services from wherever they are across this country, would you really care who's been appointed to cabinet, who's going into the presidency? Because at the end of the day, the money is trickling down. Should we be more focused on that and less on who will be nominated to various positions within the executive?
I think Kenyans would care less. Not that they would not care, but they would care less in terms of a reduction in care rather than not care at all. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because, like you have correctly said, if you feel the effect of government to you as a common mwananchi, then you are happy for the person who occupies State House to be somebody who will deliver that for you. So, for example, if you remember the days of the late President Moi, one of the statements that he's famed for is Maisha mbaya, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. And what that translated to is, if you guys did not vote in a way that was, let's say, appealing to the powers that be, then when the powers that be took over, legitimately or otherwise, then you would bear the brunt of that rejection. And so people are sort of corralled into one area to try and vote in a certain way. Now, Kenya has developed into a multi-party democracy since that time. And we fought for that space where we could have a multi-party democracy. And when I listen to Mark, those examples are actually very good. But one common thing about all those examples he's giving is that they are back into a system where they have one or two major players. And so you're able to do that juggle. So if you're looking at Tanzania, for example, if you're looking at CCM or Chadema, you don't have too many players in the field. So you're able to put in some of those rules. In the Kenyan scenario, and even what the Honorable Prime Minister is talking about, he's talking about we are all contributing towards the national cake. We are all baking this national pie. We each deserve to get a piece. And on that score, I agree with him. Whether that translates into a rotational presidency, in my opinion, I mean, we are over 44 tribes and counting. If we get to a situation where every 5 years we have to be taking a rotation, there's some of these guys who, by the time it's getting to be their turn, people will even have forgotten where we started and what that looked like. I think the Kenyan conversation has evolved into, let's say, a higher life form than some of our neighbors. We've gotten to a place where Kenyans are more capitalists in their thinking. They're thinking prosperity, they're thinking business, they're thinking money. They're not just thinking, it's a guy who bears a similar name to mine. Why? It's because I use myself as an example. My mother is from Embu, my father is a Muluya. What am I? Am I a Muluembu? I have a sister who's married to a Meru, another one who's married to a Mkamba, a brother who's married to a Kikuyu. So even in our family, what would the presidency that would represent my siblings and I look like? Our children are even worse. Them, they don't forget about us. At least we have Kiswahili in common. They don't even have a common language. These guys are basically citizens of the world. So as Kenyan citizens, our evolution politically is such that we don't have one or two big political parties where we can insist that you take it this time and you take it the next time. What we can insist, and is what Mark was talking about earlier, is in the BBI process, we are not looking now at inclusivity in terms of just the top positions. We are looking at all through. So when you're telling political parties, your nomination lists must of necessity reflect diversity. They must of necessity make the effort to show that you're including other people. Note, in all the things that we are asking the political parties to do in the BBI, we are not talking about tribe. We are talking about women, we are talking about the youth, we are talking about the persons living with disability, and we're talking about them getting an equal chance, not just at nomination, but at also competing for these political posts. And that evolution for me is important. It is because for a long time, tribe has been our lowest common denominator in organizing. However, we've gotten to a place where we have effectively used tribe to lock out other people from leadership. We need to come to a place where now tribe shouldn't matter, such that we are looking at now competence. And that's why I agree also with what the president was saying. He was correct in pointing out that, look, there's only 2 tribes that have led Kenya. It's a fact. It's not fiction, it is a fact. But we have to come to a place as Kenyans now where tribe only should not be the big factor. We should also look at what sort of leader are we getting? What is their character? What's their track record? And this is a conversation that I wish Kenyans would have on a higher level. So for example, I have been a great proponent that for women leadership, when it is given as tokenism, it hurts women leadership because you get ineffective women leaders and they portray a bad picture for other women leaders, making the space smaller rather than bigger. And I think that's now a conversation we need to expand with the other positions in this country.
Okay.
But that said and done, we have come to a place where we have to have some fairness. Because if you ask me, the whole point of BBI is to deal with divisive elections, is to deal with uncertain outcomes of our electoral process, is to deal with also unfairness in how we implement what we have put down as our electoral laws. So that is what we need fixing, not necessarily the tribes, because if we break it down to that, it's too simplistic to make any sense.
Okay.
But we have to come to a place where the conversation is what will deliver most prosperity to Kenyans.
I want us to take a short break at that particular point in time. And even as we come back after the break, I want us to speak to, as we address the inclusivity issue, there's also this hustler narrative that's gaining quite a bit of momentum. How do we include the hustlers in the conversation? How do you move that forward? Because it seems like right now, instead of having more voices at the table, we are creating divides of these are the dynasties and these are the hustlers. How do you have a better conversation moving forward to actually bring the country together? That and more after the break. This is K24 This Morning.